House of EdTech, Episode 6.
Hi, this is Andrea Trevisano from TAC.com. You're listening to the House of EdTech with Christopher Nesi.
Welcome to the 6th episode of the House of EdTech podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Nesi. The House of EdTech is the podcast that explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objective is to discuss the technology that is changing our classrooms and schools. You can count on House of EdTech for information that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. Because whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the House of EdTech. I have a great episode for you this week. Upcoming, my featured content, I have a great interview with Darek Teller. He is part of Celly, and Celly is a texting service that I featured and recommended in the first episode of House of EdTech. I also have a great EdTech thought, which is related to my upcoming, or what I'm doing with my master's thesis. And I have a great EdTech recommendation. I'm going to be talking about comic books and comics in the classroom this week. And I also have the next installment of, you guessed it, the House of EdTech VIP. So without any delay, let's get into this week's featured content, which is my interview with Darek Teller of Celly. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for this week's featured content, I am very happy to have on a representative and important figure from Celly. And if you recall, I recommended Celly in the first episode of the House of EdTech. And just as a refresher, Celly is a fantastic website that allows you to set up mobile social networks and communicate with students, the community, all via text message. And some of the best parts about it, well, I'm not going to talk about it this week because I'm going to turn this over and we're going to get to talk to Celly's education technology specialist and account manager, Mr. Darek Teller. Darek has a bachelor's from the University of Oregon, so go Ducks, and he has a master's from Reed College, and Darek has 16 years of high-tech industry experience. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Darek Teller to the House of EdTech. How are you, Darek?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
It is my pleasure. I'm a big fan of Celly. I've been using your website and what you guys provide for almost 4 years now. And I figured now with this podcast, not only do I need to talk to the teachers, I need to talk to the people who make the technology that make my life easy and the lives of many other teachers. So tell us about Celly. Where'd it come from? What's the background?
Well, I was the first employee at Celly, but it was originally founded by Greg Passmore and Russell Okamoto, very good friends of mine. They used to work in cloud computing for some big companies, and they decided they really wanted to do something that would help the world and sort of help everybody. Instead of building software for corporations, they decided to leave their jobs and start Celly. So Celly kind of started with an idea to harness the most ubiquitous tool for organizing movements and groups, and that happened to be the cell phone, obviously. And this is when SMS was still more common than the smartphone. This was about 4 or 5 years ago when the idea kind of came up. And so they started working on Celly, and we went public in late 2010. I was brought in as to help sort of get things going. And it was about 3 of us until last February. We were lucky enough to get some good funding, and now we have a whole team. There's about 7 of us, still relatively small, but we're based out of Portland, Oregon, and it's kind of a vibrant startup scene here right now. And that's kind of how we got started. And basically, we just wanted to create a tool that anybody could use to organize large groups and group communication.
And I've used it in small classes. I've used it on field trips. I didn't realize you guys were, I guess, small in terms of your employees, but I guess like Chihuahuas, you guys are tiny but mighty because Celly is very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, we're always growing and looking to hire new people. Right now, we have a great team, all very diverse backgrounds. Some are developers, some are more generalists in business and sort of education specific skill sets. I was brought in because of my tech background, but I also just spent 7 years in academia, sort of learning the ropes there. So I kind of bring my experience in the classroom and going different learning styles and whatnot, and how we can apply some of that to Celly and how Celly is used in and out of the classroom.
And I think that's fantastic because so many times in education now, you get people who come up with tools or they want to sell you something or provide you with some technology or whatever service it might be, and they've never been in a classroom or have any idea what it means to be a teacher or work in education. So as a teacher, I know I can appreciate your background in education.
Yeah, yeah. I was a run of the mill student in high school, just average grades, and then so I guess you could say I had struggled in some aspects with learning, but then when I really got into college and kind of got passionate about my studies, I really saw a lot of self growth and kind of realized what learning styles were better for me. So I try to apply that as much as possible to different use cases for Celly. Obviously, as you know, you can use it in the classroom for mobile learning or just for school communication. So there's a lot of ways it can be used to sort of empower students to speak up, to do group projects, and to really be engaged with the whatever topic they're discussing or learning.
And it's not just students. I mean, I've tried to be a proponent for you know districts I've been in that pay a lot of money for their you know call alert systems, and Celly is just as powerful and could be used to bring the community into the school districts.
Yeah, yeah, we have hundreds of districts across the country using Celly for various reasons. A lot of that could be some simple enough as just weather notifications about school closures, also sports team communication. And then we have sort of the power users like yourself, where teachers and educators that are using it as like an in-class feedback device. I mean, we can get into this a little more, but as you know, Celly works on any phone, laptop, or web browser or a smartphone app, so that you don't have to have a specific piece of hardware. It's what we call device agnostic. This seems to be really good for a school setting because you have different demographics, different tech levels, different income brackets, and because it works on any device, it allows everybody to participate regardless of what kind of phone they have or what kind of computer they might have.
And that's a great feature because the first time I used it was in the middle school setting, and typically, a couple years ago, not every middle schooler had the $300-400 expensive smartphone. I had kids with flip phones, basic candy bar phones, and in that setting, I was using it, to eliminate excuses and um, push out one-way messaging to the kids with reminders about homework and different things going on in class. And it was a way to also get my parents involved. And the community wasn't you know I don't want not upper class, but so there was a variety of technology available that I was working with.
Right. Yeah, I work with a lot of teachers locally, and what I hear a lot, especially in more low-income areas, where often both parents are working, or there might be a language or a culture barrier. The benefit with Celly that I hear over and over again from principals and teachers is that the engagement is much higher through the text message with parents and with students alike when there's more diversity on what kind of technology or skill set that student or parent might have. So I think in the areas that really need our help in the education system, and at least in the United States, it's really about engagement with parents and students, and the text message seems to be the way to go versus say email or Facebook or something where there's more hoops and more requirements.
Yeah, as a teacher, I'm not a fan of a lot of requirements. I like to have that freedom. And it's also There I go again. Lose my thought because there's so much to say about Celly.
Yeah, I
um,
think that part of the challenge of being a communication startup like ourselves is that what we provide is a really general tool in some senses. I mean, you can do polling, you can do one-way alerts, you can do two-way group discussions, you can do all this stuff, but it's really up to the educator or the leader or the person in charge of the group to kind of come up with the creative ways that Celly can solve some solution for them. So I often talk to schools where they're using the old phone tree system, where you call one person and they call someone else. And it's a very archaic way to get a message out. And so something like Celly could be a simple solution to really cut back on the amount of labor involved in the phone tree system using Celly instead. And likewise, it could be a class discussion you're trying to facilitate rather than have, 40 voices at once with raising their hands. You can kind of get a different level of engagement and keep the conversation on topic using Celly. So it very much comes down to different educators and their ideas on how to use it. And I think that's great because we provide the tools, and then the teachers are the ones that really are the vanguards for Celly in schools. And we really appreciate all that and all the feedback we've received about that.
oh, absolutely. And going back to what you just said about the archaic, phone chain, I, I wish there was a word that could describe it being even older than archaic. This year in my building alone,
Right.
I went to my principal secretary and the principal that I work with, and I said, why are we using the phone tree here? Let's try this. And it's not for the whole school, but the people that my VP oversees, you know, we're using Celly, or we're just about there. I mean, we're
Right.
coming out of the winter, but I pitched it, and we got to jump through the hoops a little bit at the administrative level to try something new. But I've sold it as hard as I can for it being, free, powerful, and will get the job done.
Right. So the horizontal application of it is a huge benefit and provides a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, you really have to either find a thought leader like yourself to show how it can be used at the school level, or you just really have to hone in on a specific need that a school might have. So it makes the onboarding process a little more challenging, but at the same time, for us that's exciting because we keep figuring out new ways it can be used, and that's all coming from teachers, from feedback that we get at conferences, through support, through our beta tests, and just our power users that are always coming up with new ways to use Celly. So, in one sense, it can be difficult at times to get the foot in the door with a school, but normally, if we have a grassroots movement there, like a couple teachers adopt it and start using it, that's really where it gains traction. Is when a teacher sees another teacher using Celly to solve an issue or to provide a better solution. So we're really thankful for all the teachers that we've had to kind of put us on the map.
Now, with the teachers that you guys correspond with, you guys are big on Twitter. You respond very quickly, and you're definitely out there to communicate and learn from the teachers. What are some of what's some of the feedback that Celly has been getting in terms of usage that maybe I'm not doing, but could be of help to people listening?
I can go over some of the more common use cases, maybe. That would be the easiest way to address that question. Obviously, I think you do some of this already, but probably, the one-way alerts is great for a school or an entire district. It could be a field change for the sports team. It could be a snow closure. That's a very simple way to use Celly. And, there are obviously other services that do similar. So we really don't like to position ourselves as just another messaging tool. Rather, the use cases that really get us excited are the ones where a teacher will be using Celly for in-class discussion, like a back channel. Could be during a film or a reading group. You can also use Celly like a clicker, so a teacher can send a quiz to the class, and you can actually mark correct answers and see those results. And students can respond with any device that they have, right? It could be their iPod or their iPhone, or it could just be a regular old flip phone. So what I think that provides is, first off, it gives a lot of shyer students a voice. They may normally be apt not to speak up. Maybe they don't want to be put on the spot. But through Celly, they can send their message out, and they can still participate. And it just seems like a lot of students in the current generation are more comfortable speaking through, a device or a text message rather than, out loud. So ideally, what I'd like to see is more Celly use case like that. And I have heard from a lot of teachers, you can kind of recreate the roundtable sort of conference style learning using Celly, even in a large classroom setting, because the teacher can facilitate and sort of lead the conversation, but it's really the students that are driving the discussion. So the teacher can kind of sit back and there's, what we call a curated mode, where messages are coming in and the teacher's sort of vetting them. And what you can do with that is basically have a really rich dialogue and what we call authentic communication. So it's kind of the opposite of Twitter. Often we describe it, if Twitter's a cocktail party, Celly's more like a caucus, right? So you can, to just drive home what I was trying to explain is, I think you can get really good conversation through mobile devices, both in the classroom and out of the classroom. So if it's homework help or a group project or just teacher-parent communication, you can really have some good, strong communication through Celly rather than email or something like Twitter or Facebook, where there's a lot more oversharing and more noise. So I think that's one benefit, is just class discussion. And also polling is another great way. You can use Celly group polling to do feedback, so clicker-like student response. And we also have photo sharing and file sharing. So there's, you could send corrected homework through your cell. You could, use photo sharing for all sorts of cultural projects. Maybe you're studying something and you could use different types of media through your cell to discuss, a topic. So there's a lot of ways you can use it for mobile learning.
And those are some new features that I've just seen recently with the I guess the rebrand and the redesign of Celly. So for those
Right.
that are listening, Celly, while always powerful, the website used to be, black and, a little dark, but provided, this light at the end of the tunnel to eliminate excuses. And now the website is bright and blue, and you guys have the new logo I saw in the last couple days. So there's some real exciting things going on now.
Yeah, we just updated our iPhone and Android apps. The iPhone app also works on the iPod, and the Android app on the Android tablets. So we're really going with this sort of new stylistic theme where it's more inviting, more sleeker, easier to use. And we're always looking to improve all that. So we actually have some pretty exciting things in the works that you'll hear more about soon.
It,
And I could talk about those a little bit today as well.
if you can drop some hints, I'm always up for insider information
Yeah, yeah.
regarding the latest and the
Well, we
greatest.
just, I kind of, there's some stuff I'm not sure how deep I can get into yet because it's still in the sort of development phase, but I can tell you what we just launched at the University of Portland, a small school here in Portland area. We just launched a campus-wide Celly, what we call Celly Fusion. It's a domain-specific version of Celly, so the only people that can join the groups within that domain are students or faculty or staff that have that school's .edu email. So it's kind of like a larger network of groups, but it's specific to a school or a district. We're also working with the Portland Public Schools, rolling this similar domain setup with them as well. So the Celly Fusion is basically this. You'll hear more about it in the next few months when we go public with it. But basically, what it is it's a version of Celly that is specifically catered just to one large organization. And what it brings with it is more administration tools, a visual interface to quickly and easily create groups and drag and drop students and staff into different groups. This is something that we've built based on tons of feedback from teachers. For example, the Fusion package has an archive feature. That's something that was heavily requested by people in K-12. So basically, Celly Fusion is like an admin domain level version of Celly. And then, so that's one thing that you'll see coming out in the next few months. Another one, and this is what I think is pretty exciting, is what we call Celly over the air or geolocated cells. So just to recap, a cell is it's a biological theme. One of the founders was a big biology he had a lot of interest in biology when he was in college, and so a cell is our term for a group. It's the simplest life form, but it's also extremely complex, and it obviously can build up to the organism level. So just to clarify, a cell is a group. And anyways, we have this thing that we're working on right now, where it's basically a geolocated cell. So you would walk into your school, you would turn on your Celly app, and then you would scan for any cells in the area, and there would be a school cell based on sort of an algorithm of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and IP address. So basically what it essentially creates is cells that are located in a specific place or area rather than statically on the internet. So you would be able to walk into a campus or a restaurant or a church or your school, and you would see the cells that are available there to join. As soon as you leave that designated area, they would no longer be visible.
That's what I'm
So,
talking about.
so
In the
that you can
last two
tell a
minutes,
lot of
Celly
what
was
it's thinking.
awesome. And now the two things you just described just totally blow this out of the water in terms of what it's going to be capable of. The whole reason I got into Celly to begin with was, the whole privacy factor as a teacher. Students and parents don't have my cell phone number. I don't have theirs. Life is good. Now you tell me Celly Fusion basically creates your own private Celly for your district, your building. Um, that's that's amazing. I cannot wait to see that and be able to use something like that or bring that to my district as an option. Um, and
Yeah.
and what is the second part called again?
Well, with the official name is we internally we call it over the air. Just basically means a cell or a group is located based on a sort of a agreed upon location. So it could be basically it uses GPS or Wi-Fi or whatever is available. It could be Bluetooth or an IP address. And so an area is designated as a cell. So if I walk into Mr. Nessie's classroom, I'll see his cell available to join. If I go into the math department, I'll see the math cells, right? So it just makes it an easier way to have to basically attach a physical location to a cell.
That is awesome.
And
um,
yeah,
I can only imagine what you can't tell me right now.
yeah, yeah, I have to be careful because a lot of this is still we're still brainstorming. I mean, we've just started development on all this, but we're still gathering feedback. What different educators want to see. So if anybody out there using Celly or has a great idea, shoot us an email. We're always open to suggestions or feedback.
Awesome. And what are some of the ways that people, teachers, that we can reach out to Celly? What are the best ways to get to you guys?
Well, Twitter, we're on Twitter. It's Celly Me. Unfortunately, someone else has the name Celly, so on Twitter, we're known as Celly Me. That's just CELLYME. And you can also find us on Facebook if you search for Celly. But probably the easiest way to reach out to us is just to email us, or even reach us on Celly. If you have an account on Celly, you can send a message to help. The username is help. We're always available there to answer questions, or you can shoot us an email at support@cel.ly. That's our main support email line, and we'd love to hear from you if you have any suggestions or if you just need help getting started. We also, if you're interested more in how Celly is being used in the classroom, the best place to start is the Celly blog. We do interviews with teachers all the time. I believe we did an interview with you at some point in the past. So if you go onto our blog, you can really see how Celly is being used, actual real world examples, not just in the classroom. It could be search and rescue or government or neighborhood watch. There's all sorts of use cases that are really highlighted on our blog. So that's another place to go if you just kind of want to get a more familiarity with what we're doing.
Awesome. I will definitely be linking to all of those resources in this episode's show notes, so there will be no shortage of ways to get in touch with you guys. Uh, Derek, I have to thank you for taking the time to be on the program today. I love Celly. I know other people will love it too. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on the program today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And just a reminder, we don't do advertising or data mining or anything like that. And I think that we really want to position ourselves as the second generation social network. So sort of kind of the antithesis to Facebook and Twitter. So it's really about empowering the end user to be in control of their own social network. That end user could be, an administrator at a school, or it could just be a parent or a student or a teacher. Just on a final note, it's really the easiest way to get started with Celly is to just text start to our number 23559. That's one text is all you need to do to create a group. Once you do that, you can create a group for your family, for your friends, for your classroom. So it really boils down to easy onboarding. On the fly, you can create your own social network just by texting our short code number.
And that's the best part about Celly. It's simple, it's free, and it's powerful. Yeah, those are my three favorite things.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you very much again, Derek. And as new things roll out, I'm going to definitely reach out and have you guys on again to talk about it.
Thanks, Chris.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again to Derek of Celly for taking the time to sit down with me for this week's episode. He shared a lot of great insight about Celly, and I hope that everybody does go to check out Celly and possibly bring it into your classroom tomorrow. Now let's move on to this week's EdTech Thought. Very simply, I just want to kind of give everybody an update on my master's thesis, which again, if you don't remember, I'm going to be receiving my master's in curriculum and instruction from Caldwell College, soon to be Caldwell University. And I'm in the data gathering phase of my research. My participants who have elected to participate have taken the Likert survey that I've designed for research purposes. I'm also in the process of setting up the interviews and observations that are going to be used to talk to teachers about how they use technology in the classrooms, and also how they feel about such things as the professional development they receive and how comfortable they are with technology and technology integration. As part of my EdTech Thought, I just want to recommend to people out there, and it's kind of like a recommendation, and just to kind of get something off my chest, I'll be honest, I was really disappointed with the response I got from the teachers that I work with. Now, I'm not talking trash or putting them down, but I had put together 150 consent forms that were distributed to the professionals in my building, and I only received 19 responses. 19 yes responses, but 19 responses out of 150. So if you're ever asked to participate in someone's, either maybe for their master's or for their doctorate, or just anything that might help somebody who's trying to further their academic career, or if they're doing something to further themselves professionally, and you're asked to help, really consider helping them. I'm going to be able to complete my study with, 19 participants, but I was really kind of in shock and awe that with what I'm asking, which is, at minimum completing a survey and then possibly being selected to be interviewed or observed about using technology or observed how you use technology, the response really just wasn't there. I even was able to get a few more people in the 19 who didn't quite understand what my research was about, even though I did a really good job and worked with my professor to, design a consent form that pretty much laid the whole project out and what the expectation would be. And it was just, honestly, I was just really disappointed. So I don't mean that to be a negative thing, but if you have the opportunity to help somebody out, do everything in your power to participate, because it can be really frustrating. So that's my EdTech Thought rant. Again, I'm not putting down the people that I work with. I just wish that the response and the turnout and level of participation was a little bit better and a little bit higher. So that's this week's EdTech Thought. Now, let's move on to this week's EdTech recommendation. And this week, I'd like to talk about comics and comic strips. Comics provide a powerful way to get students to enjoy and be motivated about their writing. Students love to interact with things that they can see, and the following comic strip generators will get students to engage in conversations using cartoon characters and build stories and share their works with each other. So here are some comic strip generator recommendations that you should definitely check out. The first is Scholastic Story Starters, which can be found at www.scholastic.com/teachers/story-starters. Scholastic Story Starters provides 4 starter themes: adventure, sci-fi, fantasy, and scrambler. To compose their stories, students will have the option to choose from 4 different formats: a notebook, a letter, a newspaper, and postcard. After picking out the desired format and typing in their text, they can either download their finished work or print it. So if you're trying to save paper, maybe you just have them download it and export it and send it away where they don't have to actually use paper. This is all done without the need for a sign-up or registration. And this is a really great website for younger students. So primary grades, just starting out in the computer lab, really colorful, really catchy. So you might want to check out Scholastic Story Starters. Number 2, Make Beliefs Comics, and that's comics with an X. And that's at www.makebeliefscomics.com. Make Beliefs Comics also does not call for any sign-up or registration, so that's also really good in the younger grades, or if there's an issue where you have students creating accounts for things. They don't have to do that with Make Beliefs Comics. You can use a wide variety of characters, objects, speech bubbles, and thought cubes to use to create their stories. You can download, print, or share through popular social media websites. So if your students are on Twitter, they can share on Twitter and a couple of other different social media outlets, in addition to printing and emailing the comics that they create. The next one, Comic Master, which is at www.comicmaster.org.uk. Comic Master also provides students with a rich library of backgrounds and characters that they can use to create comic books and graphic novels. And I know that graphic novels are very popular in the middle and secondary levels. These comics can be shared for free with friends and also on social media websites. The next one is called Chogger, and that can be found at chogger.com, CHOGGER.com, where you can draw your own comics, caption photos that you've taken, and you can also take webcam pictures and add speech balloons. You have the ability to read, rate, and comment on comics made by people from all around the world. So if you're trying to create a more globally connected classroom, Chogger might be the way that you go. The next one is called Witty Comics, and that's at www.wittycomics.com. It's a simple-to-use web tool for students to generate comic dialogues. They have pre-drawn background scenes and characters that are already provided, and the students only need to select the ones that they want to feature in their comics, and then they just add their text. The final one that I'd like to mention is called Storyboard That, which can be found at www.storyboardthat.com. Storyboard That offers a wide variety of services and options for students to tinker with when creating their comics. Now, Storyboard That is probably the first thing I'm going to recommend that costs money, which comes at a price that's almost $6 a month. The free version gives you only 14 days and does not allow you to upload your own images to use in comics. But I am good friends with Jeff Bradbury of teachercast.net, and if you go to www.teachercast.net/storyboardthat, you can get 25% off your subscription to Storyboard That. That's this week's EdTech recommendation, bringing comics into your classroom. And now it's time for this week's House of EdTech VIP. This week's House of EdTech VIP, Billy Krakauer. Billy is the computer technology instructor at Beatrice Gilmore Elementary School in Woodland Park, New Jersey. For the past 6 years, he has served in such positions as special education teacher, inclusion teacher, and resource room teacher. Billy Krakauer enjoys teaching students how to use Web 2.0 tools such as Edmodo, Skype, and Google Hangouts. He's also an expert in Google Docs, as well as Espresso Education. Billy has an advanced certificate in educational leadership from Long Island University, and he has also earned a dual master's degree in special education and elementary education from LIU. Mr. Krakauer has presented at various conferences on technology in the classroom, including the New Jersey Association of School Administrators Texpo, the New Jersey Association of Education Technology at their annual conference. He's also presented at Edscape, the NJEA, as well as EdCamps in New Jersey, Philly, New York City, and he's even presented via Skype in New Orleans and to EdCamp in Boston. He's one of the lead organizers of EdCamp NJ, and he's also a co-founder of hashtag LMSci, which is Elementary Science, and he's a co-moderator for NJEd, SatChat, and Billy has also been recently named the co-director of NJA SCD North Chapter, and he serves as an executive board member for NJA ET. So, Billy Krakauer, you are the House of EdTech VIP, and for all of you listening, you need to go connect with Billy. Again, reach him on Twitter at WKrakauer, KRAKOWER. And that's this week's House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for this episode of the House of EdTech. I am Christopher Nesi. Keep the conversation going. Visit my website at mr.chrisnesi.com. You can check out the show notes for this episode at mr.chrisnesi.com/2014/03/houseofedtech6.html. If you have a question or comment that you would like to leave me, that you'd like me to address on a future episode, I encourage you to send me a voicemail, which I will feature on the show. You can click the SpeakPipe button on my website or call 732-903-4869. You can also send me an email at nessie.history@gmail.com or tweet me your questions or comments at Mr. Nessie on Twitter and use the hashtag HouseOfEdTech. If you enjoyed the show, please consider rating this podcast in iTunes and writing a brief review. Your 5-star rating and positive review will help get this show in front of people who haven't seen it and might benefit and enjoy it. Thanks for listening, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.